I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to join me. I know this particular one, if you've been keeping up, is a little out of order. I have been busy um, starting with uh, a separate setup with Getter, Minds, Odyssey, and of course, there's the way I can find my wife on Facebook. So we've been already expanding. So I'm in the process of trying to transfer. We at least have a presence over there. Haven't posted anything yet on some of the others, although Minds we do. So if you have the opportunity or have a Minds account, go ahead and check us out. So I wanted to get started on something that kind of everybody else has touched on lately, and it's regarding the $600, the bank account with the IRS. Um, everyone does side jobs for a few bucks. Well, the government wants their cut. No taxation without representation, right? Right now, the socialists in office, even the mayor in my local city I live in, is a socialist, especially with command economy. Um, they don't represent me. They haven't. I haven't felt like I've been represented for a very long time. Um, you have Biden saying how Republicans are the enemy right now. They're holding, Republicans were holding up the $3.5 trillion social package. I hear Biden called and said he'd settle between 1.9 and 2.5 with another 1.5 trillion. So it comes out to like 3.9. And anyways, he's trying to do these sort of omnibus packages. Um, you know, I I think the whole thing should be voted no on. The government should balance its budget. It would represent a vast cut in spending as well to actually balance the budget. I mean, imagine the thought. Balancing their checkbook. I don't need people running up my debt because they think it's in my best interest or because they think they're my social betters. Biden said, if you don't support the 3.5 agenda, if you don't, this New Deal, and boy, is it a whopper, people. Um, then you are complicit in the decline of the country, he said. I think spending us into oblivion is declining. Is the major decline of our one of the major declines of our country right now. Democrats are going scorched earth to continue to guide this country to an aristocratic. Actually, be more corporate, top down authoritarianism, and it's oh my gosh, rules for thee, not for me. So be compliant or be complicit, be compliant, and next you must confess. How long before you're guilty until you're proven innocent? It's already that way with a lot of the woke culture that's spreading this sort of social concept, and the IRS already has the attitude that you're guilty till proven innocent. Worse, um, they're so backlogged at the moment that they'll get around to you when they have the time to figure out what you did wrong. Mr. Biden and his administration have already stated that they support BLM and its cult. And I do feel that some of BLM is just that, a socialist cult. And until recently, the IRS was only government branch that acted that way officially as well. That guilty until proven innocent. What makes you think that them having the power to increase uh, to increase the watch of your personal bank account is going to stop them? The religion of the Democrats is disturbing when you look at it. There is no room for forgiveness with it. And if you're born a certain skin color that has its own tenets within the religion all its own, part of the new Democratic Party, part of the new Democratic Party slogan, "One Nation Under Media." Amen and a women. Ah, do you remember that in Congress? Again, it shows a particular decline within the government, a sense of corruption, a rot. Um, within our government. So let's take a look at some of the articles that I had looked at and so that I can share my thoughts. So to start with, I did have an article pulled up earlier. It was from not the New York Post. I believe I had it. No, not NPR. I believe I had it pulled up from the Daily Wire. Was talking about how Yellen was supporting the new nominee for comptroller of the currency. This particular person had been in charge, to my understanding, or in relation to the Soviet Union when it collapsed, of course, and it had collapsed, broke, but she didn't think there was anything wrong with the way the banks had run. This particular article by the New York Post that I have here, it states, um, well, of course they do, Yellen said. Right now, on every bank account that earns more than $10 a year in interest, the bank reports the interest earned to the IRS. That's part of the information uh, base that includes W-2s and reports on dividends and other incomes that taxpayers have earned. So collection of information is routine. That's how they started off. Oh, this is just routine. Yellen cited the enormous tax gap in the U.S. as the reason behind the proposed tax hikes and information collected, blaming the gap on places where information on income can be hidden. Now, this would include everything from like earning $100 from helping your friend move, um, which is quite common, but they want their fair share of it. They're claiming that it's just a piece of the information. We're not asking for the whole thing. Well, they already collect pieces of information on people all over the place. What's to stop the IRS as it is from going into your bank account? Under the proposal, banks would be required to turn over aggregated inflow and outflow numbers annually to the IRS and would cover bank accounts with at least 600 or at least 600 worth of transaction according to the Wall Street Journal. So this is something that is very concerning. And of course, here we've got where the IRS apologizes for aggressive scrutiny on conservative groups. So what makes you think that they're not going to, say, go after people who they think might be related to January 6th or to, say, anybody that they think might oppose them and target them specifically? Because that's what this article here, this is from 2017, in which the IRS targeted conservative groups. What was the total number? I think it was like 452 groups altogether, or no, like 41 conservative groups that were scrutinized by the IRS when they didn't need to be. So back to the $600 in the IRS, and you helping a buddy move, and they give you $100. And say you do this for a few friends. Well, yeah, now did the government wants its cut of the income you've earned? Since they all tend to run side deals, Biden being one of the worst ones of all, he thinks that you're going to pay your fair share, even to do it now. And as you saw in the article, it already mentions tax hikes. This $3.5 trillion bill also includes an 8% tax per mile, not per gallon, per mile traveled in a vehicle. How they're going to figure that, I don't know, but it's going to give them another excuse to get into your bank account. It's an insidious thing when you think about it. Okay, the migrants rushing the border right now, and the problem is not necessarily number of votes coming into the US, but the money that they will bring in tax laws that are changed in such a way as to be able to check bank accounts for undocumented migrants. Well, they don't have W-2s. Most migrants are paid in cash, and what do? They give it to the bank, their money to a friend or a family member with a bank account. Again, this is how the IRS plans to tax and make up for the tax gap. All these new immigrants coming in are going to be taxed. They've already figured a way to do it. Taxation is extortion. And if this passes, it really will be theft at gunpoint. Theft with the threat of the force of, or with the threat of force. Unless, of course, you're Afghanistan. Then they give you this stuff for free. Money, guns, hey. I know I'm a tax accountant, and if you don't pay your taxes, your fair share as an American, then how is the government supposed to make its income? It does not produce anything, save maybe death. Others would say war, because that's the two. There are two ways that the American government makes its income. One is by war, and the other is by taxation. And of course, long ago, the government found that even if you tax a millionaire at 50% the income, that's only $500,000. But if you tax 1 million people at $1, that's $1 million. Hey, so when you say tax the rich, they're already paying their fair share. This is not the government of the founding fathers. Government is not evil or good. It is the men within that position of government. The ones that we elect are not the real leaders, and they are the ones that put the people into the permanent life positions. Those jobs should be term limits, but as the government grows, the permanent government gets bigger, and the continuous placing on of the government's ruling elite in America. Look at Trump's presidency. It's obvious to anyone who spends a day looking into it that it's the permanent government, the corruption within, and those that don't necessarily represent us, they're not elected, that we're blocking him in many ways. Saying he's the best president, I'm just using him as an example. That is a good position of corruption that resides within the government. Yellen is one of the really good examples. Milley is another. And before you say that you are represented, because of you have the senators that would have confirmed her, already said that I have felt not represented since before Clinton. It is the man or woman that make the government lawful or corrupt. The government is not systemically anything other than laws, enforced moral codes that are a collection of the people or a society. The society that agree to have it enforced. That government can print its own money, but at what cost? I've been looking at the 600 transaction limit and the $3 trillion bill at no cost, and it's easier to take $1 from 1 million people than having to produce $1 million on your own. Heck, back here in the city that I'm in, an example of a politician being corrupt. The mayor this past year decided that any tax preparing business that is not a CPA or an EA must charge a certain amount of money for their services. This is an example of what is called command economy. When a politician decides to set up businesses' prices for them, it means that by law, that business would not be able to offer any types of discounts as well. So, an example being, say, you charge $200 to prepare taxes, but for somebody who's low income, you would charge a whole lot less. Well, he'd set the price to be X amount of money, so you have to charge people X amount of money, even though you would normally, in a circumstance, charge them less. Why do you do this? Well, he did this, he claims, to protect the people of the city. Yeah. It also means that, of course, by charging people X amount of money, then they have to be charged X amount of money in gross receipts tax for the city. Yeah. So, anyways, heck, there's plenty of certificates that you can get for free. And unlike most Americans, I keep up on the tax laws, whereas most people know just enough to get themselves into trouble. It's just one man's opinion. Caveat emptor. Please think for yourself, though. When you find yourself thinking with the masses, you might want to stop and reconsider your opinions and your morals. At the moment, I'm still making them with YouTube in focus, but this will, of course, change because though I don't consider myself a climate denier, and I obviously cannot deny that the weather changes, I have some argument with the so-called scientists. Like, America, why should America become responsible for the rest of the world, whether it's for enforcing what we would consider morally right or be responsible for the rest of the world's financial carbon? but Biden thinks we should be. Anyways, with that, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules. Check us out on one of the other platforms if you happen to have an account. Getter, Minds, Odyssey. And thank you very much for your time, and have yourself a very beautiful day.